Shankar Venugopal, and I would like to thank Dr. Shankar Venugopal because when we raised the invitation to him, we had a second thought whether we are going to have the acceptance or not. But it is the simplicity and humbleness and the God's grace that instantly we received the acceptance from Venugopal sir. So on this occasion, I would like to extend my sincere thanks on behalf of Sri Ishwar College of Engineering and Department of Mechanical Engineering. And today we have taken this particular topic, electrical vehicles, the trends and challenges, because as we all very well know that the entire world is moving around a paradigm shift in terms of automobile vehicles. And today we cannot avoid this particular content, what we are going to see for the next 5 days. And to have a great start, when we thought of having a personality, an expert who can really provide an insight to this upcoming thrust area, then we had the first thought that we can go for a person who is really into this world of vehicles that are of next generation. And in this moment, it gives me an immense pleasure in welcoming today's speaker, Dr. Shankar Venugopal, Sir, Vice President, Mahindra and Mahindra Research Valley, Chennai. Sir leads technology innovation for the automotive and farm service businesses. He heads the intellectual property, patents, and knowledge management function. He is also the Dean of Mahindra Technical Academy. He is passionate about developing sustainable urban mobility solutions, and his current interest spans across electrical vehicle, connected vehicle, autonomous vehicle, and precise farming. That itself shows the interest and the passion Dr. Shankar Venugopal has in the upcoming thrust area. Prior to joining Mahindra and Mahindra, Shankar sir has held technology innovation leadership role at GE, Dow, Honeywell, and Cummins. He holds 10 international patents and numerous new product innovation awards. He has developed an innovation methodology, innovation flow, and trained 1,000 plus inventors and innovators. He obtained his doctorate in material science, and most importantly, he is the gold medal for the best doctoral thesis from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. That itself is a testimony and witness that we can't find a person much greater than this. He completed his executive management program from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. And he is also a avid reader and is interested in physics, philosophy, and psychology. He teaches technology innovation management at Premier Engineering and Management Institute in India and abroad. It's a pride and blissful moment for everyone who have joined in this faculty program to have Dr. Shankar Venugopal sir in our midst. On behalf of the management of Sri Ishwar and the Department of Mechanical Engineering, we extend our sincere thanks for accepting our invitation in your packed schedule to be with us, sir. We welcome you, sir, and now the session is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Roughly how much time do I have?
Sir, you can take the session from 9:30 to 10:30, sir, 1 hour.
Okay.
Then we will
Sure.
be having 10 minutes of interaction with some questionnaire session.
Sure, sounds good.
Thank you, sir.
So I will try to cover some of the industry challenges and also the opportunities from electric mobility perspective. We hear so much about electric vehicles, and I'm sure a lot of you will be curious to hear the perspective of the Indian industry towards this great opportunity which the whole world is talking about. And I'm going to go through it a bit slowly so that we'll have sufficient time for us to ask questions and discuss and share your thoughts and views as we go along. So don't hesitate. If you have some idea, if you have some view to share, just please voice it at different stages of the talk. Don't wait for the end of the session. Just please keep posting your comments on the chat bar as we go along so that it becomes easy for us to build the discussion. So let me just share my screen and take you through a presentation that I have created for you today. Okay. Satish, can you confirm whether you are able to see my screen clearly?
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible, sir.
Visible? Okay,
Yes, sir.
great.
Visible, sir.
Thanks, Satish.
Thank you, sir.
Friends, I am Shankar Venugopal, and what my background is, I'm a vice president with Mahindra and Mahindra, and prior to joining Mahindra, I had worked for a few other companies like Cummins, Honeywell, Dow, GE, and the Indian Space Research Organization (ISRO). And by educational background, I have a PhD in material science from IISc Bangalore, and also executive management from IM Bangalore. What I enjoy most is inventions and innovations. So I work on a lot of new ideas. Some of them are patentable. So I have filed patents in the US and also in India for this. And I also enjoy speaking about technology and innovation topics. So I have spoken on a few TEDx forums, if you follow TED Talks. And I really look forward to this interaction with you all today, because this is something that the topic is something I like a lot. I'm actively involved in this. And I also always look forward to interaction with people from academia when it comes to emerging technology topics like this electric mobility. So my big boss, Mr. Anand Mahindra, gave an interview to the Economic Times during, I think it was last March or April. And this was the early stage of the COVID pandemic. And then we are just getting used to working from home. So a lot of us were worried at the time how things are going to span out. And at the time, Anand Mahindra gave this interview where he said, can we use the downtime to reboot, reinvent, and reignite by introspecting the way we do things and asking ourselves, is there a better way to do things? Because the post-corona world will bring many interesting problems, and we need to be ready to solve those problems and convert those problems into opportunities. And it's very important for us to not only innovate, but also to dream bigger dreams about the future and raise our ambitions when we look at the post-corona world. So with this in mind, I thought about how we can reimagine sustainable mobility for the future. Because today's mobility solutions, if you look at, they are not sustainable. So what is it that we can do as a bunch of experts to make mobility sustainable as we move into the future? Today, when I say that it's not sustainable, I'm telling that primarily for three reasons. One is you do see a lot of vehicle tailpipe emission from the vehicles, which pollutes the air that we breathe. Second, we also see accidents that happen on the highways. Why highways? Even on the city streets and the roads, where vehicles collide and many times lead to fatality. And the third and the biggest problem is the traffic jams. Most cities, whether it's Chennai or Bangalore or Pune, cities that I have lived, I have seen traffic jams. And this is going to be a big, big problem for us as we go ahead. Unless we figure out a way for this, cities are going to get really bottlenecked, and it's going to kill our productivity. So when I say that today's mobility is not sustainable, I'm telling primarily because it's not clean, it's not sufficiently safe to avoid the accidents, and also it's not convenient because many times as we add more and more vehicles to the road, we get into traffic congestions. So is there a way for us to move away from this and come up with a mobility that doesn't have all these problems? This is what we are asking ourselves. So when we try to do this, primarily looking at four key technologies which can help us to build this sustainable future mobility. I'm sure you have been hearing about these technologies. So let me tell you what they are. One is, of course, the connected vehicle. By this, we mean a car which has smart and connected features so that the data can be shared and then the data can be processed either locally on the car or on the cloud. And then you can create value, you can create useful services based on the data that gets generated from the vehicle itself. It could be the data about the fuel, the drive pattern. It could be about where the car goes, what it does, variety of things we can look at. The second is the autonomous features in the vehicle. It can be a drive assist. It can be a parking assist. It can be a variety of very low-level autonomous features to start with, and finally reach a level where the car becomes driverless. It goes on its own and you are just a passenger in the car. So there are at least 5 levels of autonomous features that we can talk about when you look at autonomous vehicles. Then we have a shared vehicle. This is the typical, the Ola, the Uber service that you might all used, where you need not own the vehicle, but you'll be able to access it whenever you need it. And this gives you all the benefit of a vehicle without making that initial big investment. And also, you need not worry about the maintenance and the insurance and so on because you don't own the vehicle. But whenever you need it, it's always readily available to you. And finally, the electric vehicle, where you talk about using electricity for powering the vehicle. So there is no fossil fuel that is being burnt. So it's absolutely, there is zero tailpipe emission. So this kind of a vehicle doesn't pollute the environment. So with this combination of connected, autonomous, shared, and electric, we are able to visualize a future which is very, very sustainable. So when you talk about electric vehicles, you should also consider all the 3 other things: connected, autonomous, and shared features at different levels that go along with the electric vehicle. It's very important to look at this holistically. When we try to realize this dream for a country like India, there are certain challenges. For example, when you talk about a connected vehicle, you should have internet connectivity everywhere. And today, we really do not have internet connectivity in different parts of the country. Even within the city, there is a lot of variability. Then if we talk about the variety and the density of traffic, so many kinds of vehicles traveling at different speeds, all sharing the same road. So it becomes very difficult to imagine how we can bring autonomous features to this kind of a chaotic condition. Third is, of course, when you are talking about post-COVID world, we are still worried about the safety of the passenger. So if you're talking about a shared vehicle, you're always worried about who the other passenger would be, who will be traveling with us, whether we'll really catch any infection from them. How do we make sure that it's absolutely safe to share a vehicle? The fourth is, when we hear about the electric vehicles being expensive, we also worry about the affordability. Is it something that we can actually afford in India? Is it the right thing? Is that the right time? So affordability also becomes something quite a big challenge for us to address when we look at the future, which is based on electric. So the various problems that we should decide to work on should basically address all these aspects. One is making connectivity possible. One is making autonomous work in spite of the variety and the density of the vehicles that traffic in India. Making shared vehicles absolutely safe for passengers, and also reducing the cost of the batteries, which constitute almost 40 to 50% of the price of electric vehicle, so that once a battery price comes down, electric vehicle can be made affordable for all of us. So these are some of the research or engineering problems that we should define and start working so that we'll be able to realize the dream of sustainable mobility for the future. To achieve this dream, it's not enough if we just have the necessary engineering knowledge. It's very important for us to have something more than just the domain knowledge. And that's what I'm going to tell you about now. So this is a story that I want to share with you before I get into the technical details. This is a story of a king in Kerala, and he was very fond of playing chess. And one day, a very wise old man comes to his court and invites him to play a game of chess. And the king agrees to play and asks what should be the reward for the winner. And the wise old man says that it should be just a few grains of rice. Let's keep it very simple. So the king agrees, and then they start playing the game. And the wise old man starts winning. And then, when he wins the game at the end, he demands his reward. And he says, I want the rice such a way that you just give me one grain of rice, just a single grain of rice for the first square of the chessboard, 2 for the second square, 4 for the third, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, and so on. You know that there are 64 squares in the chessboard, so you have to keep doubling this 64 times. So as the king started doing that, he suddenly realized that it's no longer small numbers, it's becoming really exceptionally big numbers that he just cannot imagine. So he starts getting worried. Do I have enough rice to give this man? Then when he starts calculating, friends, you'll be surprised that although it started with very few grains, it finally added up to so many million metric tons, which is more than 2,000 times the global production of rice. If you take all the rice that is grown across the world, it will take you 2,000 years to gather enough rice that this person had asked for. So the king realizes that this is not an ordinary person. Then he realized that it's God himself who had come to his court. So since he could not give what the god demanded that day, he builds a temple. And over the years, still today, they always serve a nice payasam made of rice because the king owed so much rice to the god. It seems God Krishna himself had come as this wise man to this court. So the moral of the story is what we call as exponential growth. Means you start small with very small numbers, but you keep on doubling multiple times, you reach numbers which are unimaginably big. So it's very difficult for us to understand that a small number on continuous doubling can lead to such a big number. Why this story is important for our discussion today? Because I'm sure some of you are familiar with the Moore's law. Gordon Moore, who was the founder, one of the co-founders of Intel, he came up with a prediction that said that the computing power of the semiconductor chip would double. Initially, he said it will double every 2 years. Then subsequently, he corrected it to say it will double every 18 months. And we have seen, if you look at the data I have shown here, from 1970 till 2000, it has been doubling every 18 months. This is similar to the story of the chessboard, where the rice doubles every square. Same way, the computing power has been doubling every 18 months over the last 30 years. And now you add another 20 years to this, so it's about 50 years of doubling. And when it doubles, also the price of the chip becomes half. So every 18 months, the price reduces by 50%. So you can imagine how much the power of the chip has improved over the years and how much the price of the chip has reduced over the years. Why we automotive engineers should think about this is because when you talk about electric, autonomous, connected, and shared vehicles, we are bringing a lot of digital technologies into our vehicle. So this digital technology is powered by the Moore's law that you see here. So the digital technology is growing in power, doubling its power every 18 months. and reducing its price every 18 months by half. So that's a powerful technology that we are bringing into the vehicle. So naturally, when you have such a great technology at your disposal, you should not be thinking of small returns. You should not be thinking incrementally. You should also be thinking exponentially. You should have some very big goals and then try to solve those problems using these technologies. That's when you will be able to really leverage the power of technology. This is not just the chip alone. I have listed here at least 12 such technologies which have great disruptive power, and all these technologies are growing exponentially. One is the mobile internet. Second is the artificial intelligence. Third is the IoT, the Internet of Things, cloud technology, advanced robotics, mechatronics, autonomous vehicles, energy storage, the lithium-ion batteries for the electric cars, 3D printing, advanced materials like graphene and lightweight materials for the vehicles, renewable energy, because electric car should use electricity which is generated from renewable sources like solar or wind. So renewable energy, all these technologies are growing exponentially and becoming more and more affordable for all of us. So it's very important for us to solve engineering problems using these technologies, because when we build solutions with these technologies in them, it will become super, extremely good in performance, and also very, very affordable, very low cost solutions, which will bring the best of technologies to the customer. So that's the reason why we should familiarize ourselves with all these disruptive technologies. It's not enough if you just know about the battery and the motor to work on electric vehicles. Ideally, you should know about all the technologies that I've listed here, because when you bring multiple technologies together, you'll be able to make it exhibit a better performance and also make it available at a lower cost. A traditional car, which is an IC engine vehicle, used to have many, many components, almost 2000 plus components the traditional internal combustion engine car has. Whereas when you look at an electric car, it has very few components. It's got about 20 plus components. So from 2000, we are now talking about a simple system just with 20 components. So it's a very, very different system. And the way the electric vehicle is manufactured is also very different from the way IC engine vehicle is manufactured. So when we design electric vehicles, we need to keep all these things in mind. And also electric vehicle, when we talk about, it's not just electric cars. You have electric two-wheelers. You have been hearing about a lot of activity in two-wheelers. You might have heard that Ola started the largest electric two-wheeler manufacturing somewhere near Hosur, and they plan to employ about 10,000 women engineers to run this plant, all women engineers. That's the beauty of this Ola plant. Electric three-wheelers. Mahindra has an electric auto called Trio. So two-wheelers and three-wheelers have a very big role to play, because you can imagine on Indian roads, there are more two-wheelers and three-wheelers than anything else. So electrification of these vehicles is very important for a market like India. Then, of course, you have the personal vehicles, the electric cars that you and I will start using very soon. Then you have the commercial vehicles like the semi-trucks, the long distance trucks, and even the buses, which are going electric. So electric vehicle is a very broad gamut. It cuts across all these vehicles. And in fact, in a place like Chennai, we even have electric trains. And this is not something new. It's been there for a very long time. Electric trains have been plying across the city for many, many years. Now we are even talking about small electric aircrafts. Then we are talking about electric boats, electric cruises. So electric is becoming more and more popular for a wide variety of vehicles. It's not just electric cars that we talk about. When we do all these things, when we make lots and lots of electric vehicles and bring them to the market, It's very important for us to make sure that we are not generating waste. Okay. So this is where the concept of circular economy comes. We should make sure that the cars and everything else that we design are designed such that there is absolutely no wastage of material. Everything should get recycled and reused. So you should look at the figure on the right bottom of the chart. There's a linear economy where there's a one-way flow from raw material to a finished product. In a reuse economy, which you are all familiar with, some of the products get recycled and come back into the product manufacturing. But in a circular economy, nothing really goes out. Everything is taken back. That's a beauty. So it has to start right at the design level to see how can I make sure that every single component is being reused. Okay. This is very important because we are just at the beginning of scaling up electric vehicles. So we need to think as to how to design these vehicles such that it's completely recyclable and reusable. There are again different levels at which we can target the circular economy, right from level 0, which was in the past, to a level 1, which is where we are today. Then we should target level 2, 3, 4, and 5 over the next 20 years or so. This is very important for us to make sure that we are not really having a negative impact on the environment. Through electric vehicles, we should create a very, very positive impact. So to do this over the next 20 years, we should look at the various horizontals that I've shown here: the energy, the materials, the lifetime of the product, and also the way we use the product. So at all 4 levels, we should look for opportunities and identify problems that we should solve so that we'll be able to take the levels of circularity from 1, where we are today, all the way to 5, which is over the next 20 years. This is very important for us. This chart should define a lot of interesting engineering problems that you should be addressing when you work on electric vehicles. So far, if you look at what we have talked, we talked about building a sustainable mobility for the future using electric, connected, and autonomous vehicle technologies. Then we also said there are a few technologies which are growing exponentially, like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, robotics, renewable energy, and energy storage. All these are growing in performance exponentially and also becoming very affordable. So we should be looking at how we can use all these things in the products that we build. Then finally, we also said that our focus should be on sustainability. We should bring in the right materials, the right manufacturing techniques, which will enable a circular economy around this electric vehicles. This is a summary of what I have shared so far. Now let us look at how we need to prepare ourselves for all these changes. One is our objective of research itself should change. I'll very quickly explain to you how it should change and what is it that is driving this change. See, when we look at working on electric vehicles and building a research program, the intention is to build a pipeline of technologies that would ultimately improve the performance of the product and would deliver value to the customer. So in order to do this, we explore a lot of disruptive technologies and continuously assess their technical feasibility and also the suitability of it to adapt for Indian markets. And in the process, we also come up with a lot of new ideas. We patent those ideas and we build a strong portfolio of patents so that it becomes easy to commercialize these new technologies. Now, if you see, what is the major shift that is happening when we pursue this? One is the current technology of IC engine vehicles is getting saturated. Means it's very difficult to extract any more juice from it. You have extracted whatever possible you can. Now it's hit a plateau. Now you are looking at a transition from IC to electric, which is a next gen technology. When you do this, We talked about the performance of the product. This is where it becomes interesting because the performance is no longer coming only from the product. It comes from the product and the service. Many of the automotive OEMs in India are extremely good at designing and building very innovative products. But what they have to start thinking now is to also build service around this product so that the performance, which is what the end customer pays for, is optimized. When you talk about a connected vehicle, the vehicle will have sensors and IoT. It will generate a lot of data. But we also need experts who can analyze this data and out of this analysis, create value for the end customer. That's a service part in the case of a connected vehicle. Similarly, there is a service part in the case of the electric vehicle, which is all about maintenance of the battery and making sure that you are getting the best possible range from the electric vehicle. And then if you are driving on a long distance, you need to take some breaks to keep charging your vehicle. That also becomes a part of the service built around the electric vehicle. So the ultimate performance, whether you'll be happy or unhappy using the product, comes from not only the product, but also the service that is built around the product. So this is one big shift. Second is what we have talked about, the exponential growth of various technologies, which are the building blocks of these products, and they are all converging together to create a superior performance. Then there are also certain business model disruptions that is happening. In the sense, past, to use a car, you need to own a car. But in the future, you have shared resources. With Olas and Ubers steadily expanding, you need not necessarily own a car, but still you will have a wider choice of cars to choose from. And finally, a lot of the patents that the companies are generating are also getting open source.
Oh, sorry.
A lot of the patents that the companies are generating in these fields, they're also getting open source so that even people in academia will be able to access these patents and build their research on top of it. And the new players in automotive will be the automotive companies and also the technology companies. So when you think of technology companies, you can think companies like Infosys or Cognizant or Wipro. So automotive companies like Mahindra, Tata, or Ashok Leyland on one side, the technology companies like Infosys or Cognizant or Wipro on the other side, both of them come together so that the product and the service are created in sync and the end customer is able to benefit from the combined performance of the product and the service. These are the major shifts that are happening in the automotive landscape. So it's very important for us to visualize how the future is going to emerge, how we can build roadmaps for the technology, where it is today to where it needs to go. You have seen in the case of circularity, where we talked about 5 levels of circularity. Also, we looked at energy, we looked at materials, manufacturing, so many areas. So we need to build roadmaps to start from here and reach our destination. And so many new disruptive technologies are coming, so we should be able to systematically evaluate the disruptive potential of these new technologies. And we should be able to leverage a lot of the patents that are being opened up, that are made accessible to us, so that we'll be able to, instead of starting from scratch and reinventing the wheel, we should be able to build on what has been done already in each of these areas. For example, Toyota has opened up more than 10,000 patents of theirs on hydrogen-based fuel cells. So first we should read and familiarize ourselves with the technology that is already there before we initiate any new research programs in these areas. So for you assembled here, I also want to tell you what are some of the important challenges that you should define the problems and start working on to make electric mobility very attractive for Indian customers. So one of the first things is what we refer to as the range anxiety. The electric car can do a limited distance based on the energy available in the battery. Today, most of the electric cars in India does anywhere between 100 to 200 kilometers, typical. Okay. So if you have to travel a distance longer than this, always you're worried that if the battery runs out of charge, then I'll be stranded because there are very few charging stations. So how do you manage? This constant stress in your mind is called the range anxiety. So how do you improve the range of the vehicle so that this anxiety comes down? That is one of the very first problems to be addressed. Second is the battery holds the energy. That's what determines the performance of the vehicle, especially the range. But the battery is expensive. Battery is almost 40 to 50% of the price of an electric vehicle. So how can we come up with the breakthrough innovations in batteries so that the battery becomes more affordable? That's the second set of problems that I want you to think of. The third is, today we do not have any charging stations in India. So how do we build a lot of fast charging stations? These are not charging stations which will take 3-4 hours for charging. You're talking about fast charging, which is just about half an hour. You should be able to charge more than 80% of the battery capacity. So how do we build a very good network of fast charging stations across the country? So one is indigenous technology. Second is keeping the price low so that we can invest on many charging stations so that when you're traveling across India, you'll have a continuous network of charging stations all around. So these are some of the important challenges that we need to work on for the next 5 years time frame so that we'll be able to realize the electric mobility for the country. Second is, there are a set of bottlenecks which are around the materials and also the charging infrastructure. So you're aware that the battery for this electric vehicles has lithium and cobalt in it. And both these materials are scarce materials. So there is a lot of concern around the availability of these materials when you start making millions of electric vehicles. So how do we address this challenge? Second, a lesser known problem is the electric motors. They need very powerful magnets. And these magnets are made of rare earth materials. And these rare earth materials are also very scarce. So how do we mitigate the risk around the supply of these materials when we start making more electric motors? Because we need electric motors not only for the electric vehicles, but also for the wind turbines. Same way, we need lithium-ion batteries not only for the electric vehicles, but also for the solar photovoltaic applications. So there is a rising demand for both the batteries and for the motors, and we need a lot of these materials going forward. The third is, how are we going to build charging infrastructure across the country so that it becomes a hassle-free experience for us to drive around in an electric car? If we want to work on these problems and solve and contribute to the evolution of new technology in this space, there is one thing that I want you to take note of. So some of you may have a background in mechanical engineering, and some of you may have a background in electrical or electronics, and some of you may have a background in computer science and programming. But to work on these electric, autonomous, connected, and shared vehicles, what you need is background in all these areas. Just your experience, knowledge in one domain alone is not enough. You need to have equally good knowledge cutting across all these domains: mechanical, electrical, electronics, and computer science. So one is for you to go ahead and learn the other domains. The other is also for you to actively collaborate with experts from other domains. But one thing that's for sure is the engineering foundation for working in this area is a mix of all these 4 engineering domains. Just knowledge of one domain is no longer sufficient. The second layer, what we call as integration, is where we talk about quality, systems management, communication, strong orientation on the customer, what the customer wants. Based on that, we have to do the research and build the product. So this is a very important layer that translates our engineering domain knowledge into useful products. The third is what we call as a growth layer, which is right on the top, you need to have a very innovative mindset. You should have good ethics and intelligent risk management. And you should be a continuous learner because so many new technologies are appearing in this domain, so that you should be able to dedicate time and put the effort to continuously learn new things. This is what will make you successful. So what you see on this chart is all the skills that you need to develop in order to contribute to this new domain of electric mobility. So we talked about how do we reimagine mobility. We also said how we should refocus. Then we talked about reskilling ourselves. Now I'll briefly touch upon rebuilding the ecosystem around the electric vehicle. So look at this, various components that goes into building vehicles. When we move from IC engine vehicles to electric vehicles, you would see that some parts are not going to be there anymore. Those are the ones I have showed under the red bar, because since they will not be used anymore, there's a negative impact on those parts. Typically mechanical parts like the engine parts, the clutch, the radiators, the gears, lot of mechanical moving components, they are not going to be there anymore. Then there are certain parts which will continue to be there, which is the neutral part under the yellow bar: steering systems, seats, brake lining, headlights, leaf springs, shock absorbers for a good drive quality. All these things will still be relevant. Then look at the items under the green bar, which is what is the new opportunity, which is all about electric motors, batteries, wiring harnesses, inverters, microprocessors, electronic controllers, more and more electronics. And this is the positive impact because this is going to be new. So when you talk about electric vehicles, this is all about not just building products, but building a whole ecosystem of suppliers around this product, because we need in India people who can make the best lithium-ion batteries, the best electric motors, the best microprocessor chips, the electronic controllers, everything we need to do indigenously here if you want to become world leaders in electric mobility. So there are so many opportunities out there where each of us can diversify and focus based on our background and our interests, so that all of us can contribute to the evolution of electric mobility in India. I want you to look at the physics of fast charging, understand how we can make low-cost fast charging stations, and how we can help the government to build a very good chain of fast charging stations across. And also you need to think of how we can use renewable sources like solar and wind to generate the electricity, so that when a car comes and docks to this charging station, it uses clean electricity produced from renewable sources. And the performance of the car is going to be a combination of hardware and software. So some of you who have a background in hardware and electronics will be able to contribute a lot. Some of you who have background in communication and connectivity will also be able to contribute a lot. Those of you who have a rich background in data science and analytics, again, you have a big role to play. Then there are people who are very good at programming and creating apps. All of these people are going to play a very big role, because we talk about product optimization, maintenance and service, end user services, car sharing apps and telematics, a whole bunch of things. So end of the day, the car, the electric car, which is also autonomous and connected and shared, is a combination of both hardware and software. And this whole stack is what we need to keep in mind when you talk about the future vehicle technology. Finally, I want to draw your attention on the reuse, because this is very important for us to be successful in the long term in electric mobility. If you see the critical materials for the batteries, the lithium and the cobalt, the price has steadily been going up. This is not good. If you want to make affordable cars, and if the material price keeps going up, there is no way we'll be able to achieve our goal. So this is going up because this is available only in a few parts of the globe. So there is a lot of demand for it. So one way to control this is to basically make sure that we recycle and reuse these materials so that none of the material goes waste. So we call this as urban mining, where we look at ways in which the cars at the end of the life can be collected. And then a variety of techniques like pyrometallurgy, hydrometallurgy, whole bunch of metallurgical techniques are used to extract all the critical materials, be it cobalt or nickel, copper. With so much of wiring harness, there is so much of copper out there. And lithium, everything is very effectively recycled and reused to build the newer cars. So we are talking about remanufacturing of the electric car itself based on the components extracted from the used cars. There are also many other interesting
Excuse me,
places
sir.
where people are looking at. Yes,
So this is Dr. Ramakrishnan from Sri Iswar College of Engineering. I have one
yes.
question, sir.
Yeah, please
I
go
ask-
ahead. Yeah.
Sir, shall we drive and charge an electric car in the rainy seasons?
Is it safe, you're asking, correct?
Yes, sir. Is
Ah,
it safe
absolutely.
to charge and drive?
Charge and drive. Okay. Charging should always happen under dry conditions. Okay. You cannot charge in a place which is not sheltered, which is exposed to rain. You can't do that. So it should be under a dry condition, a proper shelter. That is important. And the second is driving is fine because the battery is sufficiently insulated from everything else. Okay. Yeah. From all sides. So that is absolutely safe. Okay. So right now, if you are going to charge at home and then go around in a vehicle, then it is absolutely safe. And if you are going to charge it outside, you should make sure that there is a dry atmosphere and there's a shelter where you are charging so that there is no exposure to water. And one thing is, as much as possible, we should do slow charging, which is what we do when we do it at home. We have the whole night for the vehicle to charge, so we are not in a hurry. That slow charging is always good for the current generation of batteries. But if you are trying to do fast charging, which is just charge within half an hour, 45 minutes and go on, that fast charging is not so good for the health of the current generation battery. Maybe in the future, they'll come up with batteries which can withstand fast charging also. But today, the chemistries involved, they are not so great for fast charging. So it's ideal to do the charging at a slow pace when you're at home. And then you plan your travel such that you know typically how much range your vehicle will give. So plan within that distance. That is always safer with the current generation technology and the products that are available today.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. So I was talking about urban mining, which is recycling of the critical materials. There are also many other interesting ways in which people are trying to access materials like lithium and cobalt and mitigate the supply issues. One is to look at mining the sea, deep sea mining. The bottom of the sea, there are a lot of these minerals, and these minerals can be accessed with today's mining technology that is available. The seabed is becoming more and more important because it has many of these materials, whether it's lithium or cobalt or the rare earths, all these are available across the seabeds. So this is one new area which is getting a lot of attention these days, and there are big programs. And even India has created a program. It's called the Blue Ocean Strategy or something. I don't know. I forget the exact name of it. It's got the blue in it because it's all about a strategy that we as a country will come up with to basically use the resources from the sea. And one of this is also about mining and how we can make use of the materials that the deep sea beds offer. So we talked about 5 important areas. One is reimagining sustainable mobility for the future. Second is refocusing our research and development to enable this vision of sustainable mobility. Third is reskilling ourselves so that we can take up these problems on future mobility that will be very relevant for the post-COVID world. Then we talked about rebuilding the entire ecosystem of suppliers that are necessary for electric mobility. Not only suppliers, even the electric charging infrastructure that we touched upon. Finally, we said whatever we do, we should not lose focus on recycle and reuse, because that's what will make our efforts sustainable. So this is in short what I wanted to share with you today. And at this stage, what I will do is I will stop presenting so that we can get into a discussion mode, and then we can handle many of the questions that might have arisen in your mind based on the discussion over the last 1 hour. So let me just stop sharing my screen at this stage. Okay.
Sir, I have one question, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, we have n type of batteries, but how safe are lithium batteries compared to other types of batteries, sir?
Today's lithium-ion batteries are absolutely safe. There have been 1 or 2 incidents in the past where a battery caught fire or something, but all these things have been systematically addressed, both by the battery manufacturers and also by the automotive OEMs, which integrate this battery into the vehicles. That I would say almost 99% of the risk around a battery itself have been addressed, so that it's absolutely safe to sit on top of the battery and drive your electric car. Most of these thermal management issues, most of them are, and they have been sufficiently addressed. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
So other participants who are having any queries can now raise up the questions.
Sir, this is again Dr. P. Ramakrishnan. I have one question, sir.
Yeah, please feel free. Yes.
Sir, how to manage the waste of batteries, electric vehicle batteries?
Sure. I think what you're asked is not only an important engineering problem, but it's also a big business opportunity. It's not just India, across the world. It's a huge business opportunity to look at recycling batteries. Okay. So one is to design the batteries in such a way that it becomes very easy to recycle and extract the important materials. So that should happen at the design stage itself. Second is a collection mechanism, so that the used batteries are collected safely. Not only from the electric vehicles, it could be from your laptops, smartphones, any other devices. The third is a bunch of scalable and affordable metallurgy-based techniques, which can extract the critical materials like lithium, cobalt, nickel, and so on. That is very important because it becomes much easier than mining and purifying these materials. This is much easier because the material is already in almost ready to use form. And some companies are also looking at what we call as a second life of the battery, where after use in the electric car, the battery can be taken out. As it is, it can be used in home inverter kind of applications for another 5 years or so. This we refer to as second life of the battery. So there are many such applications also emerging for the used batteries.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have one more doubt, sir.
Yes.
Sir, number of battery manufacturers in India is very minimum, sir. Is there any difficulties in manufacturing of batteries, sir?
There are many difficulties. The primary thing is the investment, because it's like a semiconductor fabrication. You need a very advanced high technology and clean room facilities. So, so far what we have been doing is buying the lithium-ion cells and assembling them into battery packs in India. But going forward, many big companies have decided to invest on cell manufacturing also in India. So on the one hand, you have battery makers like Amara Raja who are investing to create this lithium-ion cell manufacturing. Then very recently, TVS, Lucas TVS announced their investment on a cell manufacturing. Like that, many people are now actually investing and creating new facilities for manufacturing batteries from scratch in India. So in the next 2 to 3 years, you will see many such companies in India itself, which will make the battery very affordable, so that the electric car also would become very affordable.
Right.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yes. Good morning.
This is Arpudha Mary from VIT, sir. Sir, I have one question regarding the challenges we are facing in India, like range problem and the battery cost problem and all, sir. So can we transfer the charge from one vehicle to another vehicle in order to reduce the range anxiety?
It is possible, definitely.
By
So people
means of
have, yeah, go ahead.
by means of any wireless transfer like that and all, is any possible in India,
Yeah,
sir?
absolutely. Absolutely. It is possible. It's still at a laboratory level. It's still not become commercial, but wireless energy transfer is being actively tried out. And what is more interesting is even dynamic charging, wireless, where the vehicle can be moving and can continuously be charged in a wireless mode. For example, there are 2 pilot projects happening, one at Tel Aviv in Israel, other is in Seoul, South Korea, where essentially over so many kilometers of the road, they have laid a metal strip, so that when the electric car travels on top of the strip, there is an inductive coupling that happens, and then energy is transferred and then to the car, so that as the car is moving, the more distance it travels on this road, the more the charge it will accumulate. So it's reversing the problem. Today, as you drive more, you will lose charge. But in this situation, as you drive more, you will gain charge. So that's a kind of solutions that people are actively exploring.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes.
So good morning, sir. This is Dr. Tenmari from KCT. Sir, I have a question. Nowadays, lithium batteries are being used in vehicles. So can't we use metal air batteries in that particular case? Because metals are plentifully available in India. Iron, aluminum, and zinc are available plenty in India. So can't we use this technology in vehicles? So
Absolutely, absolutely. People are looking at lithium air, okay, and even lithium iron phosphate has been adopted in recent times by Tesla for their Model 3, and a lot of new chemistries are evolving, basically. But when you talk about metal air, it's relatively new, so it will take at least maybe another 3 years for it to become commercial, both in terms of making it safe and also making it affordable. But what you have suggested is definitely a very good alternative, so that you are not. In fact, a lot of new compositions have minimal cobalt or even zero cobalt. All those good developments are happening. So this is a very important space to be working in, because in the next 5 years there will be so many new battery formulations that will be coming up. So if you are working in battery space, then you should pursue your metal air ideas. There is a lot of potential there.
thank you very much, sir. Because I thought actually we are working into it. We have started just now. So the energy density of aluminum air battery is around 8,100. Theoretical energy density is 8,100, which is higher than that of the lithium battery, lithium ion batteries. So we thought of looking at. So
Definitely. Actually, I will, you just reach out to me. I'll connect you with a few battery experts who can further help you to scale up this idea. Sure.
thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Sir, I have one more question, sir.
Yes, please.
How battery manufacturers fix the end life of battery, sir?
See, the end life of battery, if you look at the typical lead acid battery that you use in your current vehicles, typically 3.5 years, we sense that there is a need to change the battery. In the case of a lithium-ion battery, the life is much, much longer. It's more than 10 years. Okay. But what happens is, typically the electrode degrades over multiple cycles of use, charging, discharging, charging, discharging. And especially when you do fast charging, it degrades even faster. When I say degrades, what happens is, on the electrode, there will be this formation of dendrites. And slowly it will grow in length, and when it touches the other electrode, it starts shorting. So that's a kind of one very prominent degradation mechanism that happens in batteries. So the end of life is actually designed for more than 10 years. And if you follow good charging practices, then you'll be able to realize that 10 years very easily. But if you do a lot of fast charging and you are not careful about your charge and discharge cycles, then the actual life could be much lesser than the 10 years that it is designed for.
Sir, this is again Ramakrishnan. I have one more
Yes.
question, sir.
Yes.
So the world largest battery manufacturers, the CATL and the Tesla, so they said that they are looking to make batteries using sodium ions, and they said that the technology could reduce cost and life performance. Is it true, sir? It is possible?
So sodium ion, actually many years back when I was working for GE, itself we had started a research program on sodium ion. So it's been evolving over the years. So it is definitely improved in maturity, and sodium ion could be definitely a very viable technology to look at. So sodium is available in plenty and there are no supply issues. So when I said GE, it was way back 2006, 2005 to 2010. That time itself, those research have been initiated. So it's come a long way. It's improved on the maturity. So sodium ion technology is something definitely has a lot of promising potential out there. CATL, yes, China's one of the largest battery manufacturers. So Tesla in China may use those batteries. I also mentioned they have started looking at lithium iron phosphate also. And for the US vehicles that are being manufactured by Tesla in the US, they basically have this arrangement with Panasonic. So they make these batteries. And sodium ion, I don't know how soon it will get into a car, but the technology has been evolving over the last 15 years or so. And it's improved a lot on its maturity right now. So it has good potential. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sir, I have a question, sir. Sir, from a moderate or middle class family, at the present scenario, when the government of India is giving so much of subsidy and encouraging to go for e-vehicles, what will be your opinion, sir? As a normal middle class family, is it the best time to go or switch over to e-vehicle? Either if someone wants to buy a e-bike or e-car, whether it will be a good decision right now in the present scenario?
Sure. So from an average middle class consumer perspective in the Indian market, if you look at the government, the way it looked at is said, first, we'll make electric affordable for shared mobility providers, the fleet owners like Ola and Uber. If you look at the FAME 2 policy, it's very attractive for them because if they start using electric cars, then the cost of the fuel is almost knocked out because cost of electricity is so minimal as compared to the cost of petrol or diesel. So all these mobility providers readily adapt electric and they use for very long hours every day. See, you and I, if I buy electric car, we may use for 2 hours in a day, maybe. But these Olas and Ubers can use it for maybe 20 hours in a day. So that way their return on the investment will be much higher. So that's how the government policy was designed so that it becomes easy for these companies to adapt electric to start with. So that's where the initial adoption will happen. The next phase 2 is where the public transportation, the buses and sometimes the transportation, the semi-trucks and the carriers also will go electric. And phase 3 is when personal vehicles, you and I going for an electric car. So there is some time built into the plan so that by the time the charging stations, everything would be in place when you and I start using it so that it becomes easy. But if you want to try experimenting with electric right away with a very minimal investment and learn and get used to using electric vehicle, easy way for you to be is to try an electric two-wheeler, which is the easiest way for you to adapt yourself to this. And also see the value of using electric, the benefits of using electric. So you can definitely start with the electric two-wheeler to start with, and maybe in the next 3 years to 5 years time frame, you can graduate from a two-wheeler to a four-wheeler. Because by the time you have a lot of electric vehicle options and the charging infrastructure also in place. So the advantages are very minimal fuel cost, also very minimal maintenance cost. Everything is very minimal. So the total cost of operation is very low. But your initial cost you'll be able to recover maybe in 3 years or so. That's how typically it will span out.
Sir, good morning, sir. I am Ganesh Kumar, sir, from Sri Ishwar College of Engineering, sir. Sir, nowadays we are using the battery of, lithium ion, sir. So it has the risk of firing. So is it safe, sir? So now is it
Absolutely.
safe?
Absolutely safe. So all the risk around it catching fire have been addressed through thermal management issues so that there is no accumulation of heat. All the heat is very quickly extracted out from the battery pack. So it's absolutely safe. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Let me see whether there are anything else on the chat bar. So some people may just post the question as a comment instead of asking it. So let me quickly check whether there is anything there.
Sir, good morning, sir. This is Dr. Arul from Agni College of Technology.
Yes, Dr. Arul, go ahead.
Sir, very interactive session, sir. Actually, sir, nowadays governments are focusing on obtaining green energy, sir. So is it possible to go with hydrogen, sir? Is this the best way to forward, sir?
Sure. So there was a recent conference by Society of Automotive Engineers, SAE, on hydrogen fuel cell, where it had industry experts, government experts, academicians speaking. This was just about a month back. So I'm not an expert on hydrogen. So, but there are a lot of conferences and workshops happening in this space. They encourage you to attend some of these things for you to firm up your views on hydrogen. But personally, I'm focusing all my efforts on a fully battery-powered electric vehicle, and which is the lithium-ion battery-based configuration. But I'm sure a hydrogen-based fuel cell has reasonable potential. But I don't have a background in that space. Maybe you should attend some of these conferences to meet experts in those areas.
Sure, sir. So thank you so much, sir.
So I think we have covered most of the questions that you had. So thanks for making this session very interactive and lively. I really enjoyed the questions that you brought up because it brings a lot of clarity to the discussion. Otherwise, if I just speak and then wrap up, I won't even know whether it was useful for you or not. But today I'm glad that you could share a lot of your ideas and ask a lot of relevant questions and make this session very interactive and very satisfying for me. So thank you so much. And
Hello, sir.
I'd like to thank the organizers. Yes, go ahead.
Sir, myself Sadanand Malik from Oriental Institute of Science and Technology, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. Sir, I have a question regarding this electric vehicle. Actually, as you have told that in electric vehicle only 18 to 20 parts are used. So why the electric vehicles are more costly than the normal petrol or diesel vehicle? I have this query, sir.
The battery, which contributes to around 40 to 50% of the price of the electric vehicle, is expensive because batteries, today the lithium-ion battery cells we don't make in India. It's all imported. And also the materials that go into this battery, like the lithium and cobalt, they are very scarce materials whose price is going up. So that's the reason why the battery is expensive. Since battery is expensive, the electric vehicle is expensive. But tomorrow, if we start making these batteries in India, then we'll be able to reduce the price of the battery and thereby make the electric car also very affordable.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Dear participants, we have come to the end of the session of first session by Dr. Shankar Venugopal, sir. In this moment, I would like to extend my vote of thanks. Sir, I thank you very much, sir, for your clear and lucid presentation and a very informative session touching upon all the trends and challenges that are present in today's scenario when considering the transformation to be taken place in India. And I personally thank you, sir, for patiently responding to the queries that has been raised. And once again, on behalf of Sri Ishwar College of Engineering and Department of Mechanical Engineering, we extend our sincere thanks for accepting the invitation and being a part of this faculty development program for the past 1.5 hours, sharing your thoughts and views, sir. We are really honored and blessed to have your presence.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Look forward to continuing this interaction the days ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
care.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.